Next up is Win Hargrave, rank. The commentator began. However, Win, waiting in his room, found it hard to concentrate. I should have lost sooner, he murmured. He was pleased to have progressed thus far in the tournament, but he was acutely aware of his limitations. A defeat felt imminent. Well, my luck ends here, Win declared, getting ready to step out. When Win's name echoed through the venue, a frown marred the face of the Hargrave family head. Isn't he your son? You should be happy that he got this far, Cassie spoke. Am I supposed to be happy? He asked, glancing at Cassie. Cassie remained silent. Although she was the cherished daughter of Xerax, she understood her boundaries. The man beside her was not just her elder brother, but also the family head of the Hargrave family. The duel commenced. From the onset, the outcome seemed predictable. Win's opponent ranked in the mid-300s, and Win was clearly outmatched. Jaden, watching from a distance, couldn't help but grin at Win's public display of inadequacy. His smile broadened as he observed Win barely withstand an attack from a mere C-rank hunter, using his mana barrier. Remember your place, Jaden muttered, taking pleasure in Win's defeat. Meanwhile, Asher, watching the duel on the screen in the waiting room, didn't show much of a reaction. He hadn't expected Win to win every match, knowing Win's talent wasn't primarily in combat. Ugh! Win groaned as the power of his opponent clashed with his mana barrier. He didn't have the mana to sustain a prolonged fight against a C-rank hunter, and sensed his imminent loss. However, a part of him desperately wanted to win. He didn't wish to be perceived the same way he had been for the past 2 years, but reality was proving otherwise. As Win raised his hand to cast a wind blade, his opponent vanished, then reappeared behind him, slamming Win's face into the ground and causing him to lose consciousness. The winner is. Seeing Win Hargrave's defeat, Alfred glanced at Xerax, whose face showed no reaction to Win's loss. Observing that, Alfred deduced that Xerax still held to the Hargrave tradition of valuing strong above weak. You don't look affected by your grandson's loss, Dalton said to Xerax. We only respect the strong. I don't have time to worry about weaklings, Xerax replied. However, the fact that someone bearing the Hargrave name had lost so pathetically made Xerax's blood boil, though he kept his feelings hidden from those around him. Win was carried off the stage, and the next duel was announced. Several hours and many duels later, the rankers duel that everyone had been waiting for began. Ads by Pub Future. After a few duels between rankers of the second year and third year, matches occurred between rank 9 and those below rank 15. There were some unexpected outcomes, with rankers, especially rank 9 or 10, losing to those in rank 12 or 11. People were shocked, but they understood that the end-year tournament could significantly change the rankings. At the judging panel, some of the professors were discussing various matters. Should we really do this? The one in charge of the tournament asked. We can't bend the rules, another professor replied. We've already confirmed this list with Vice Principal Xander, so it should be okay, one of them added. The next duel is between rank 3 Alyssa Astaria vs rank 14 Alan Astaria, the commentator announced. This matchup surprised many, but the most taken aback was Alexander Astaria, the head of the Astaria family, who was in the VIP section. Alyssa once again took her place on the stage, aware of the hostile gazes directed at her. Yet, she remained silent. Alan ascended the stage, a frown marring his features. Unlike the other rankers, he wasn't intimidated by the prospect of facing Alyssa. Perhaps he mentally regarded Alyssa as inferior, but his confidence in fighting against her was evident. Leonard, ensconced in his room, smiled as he noticed Alan donning all the artifacts he had bestowed upon him. Show me your worth, Alan Astaria, Leonard mused internally. Regardless of the match's result, Leonard considered it a victory for himself. Take your positions, the referee instructed. Both contestants complied, standing opposite each other, poised for combat. Online. Viewers were abuzz with excitement and disbelief, never having anticipated a duel between the Astaria siblings. The majority rallied behind Alan, rooting for his victory. However, a minority doubted Alan's ability to overcome Alyssa. Farnes had personally verified the list of matchups, and thus was privy to this impending clash. Given that Alan had voluntarily chosen to challenge Alyssa, his self-assuredness was presumably bolstered by the powerful artifacts in his possession. I think you should take a look at. With the bracelet on his right arm, that created a barrier around the wearer that decreased the effect of ice-based magic. And an armor that increased his resistance to magic, and the sword that could pierce any sharp object till rank C. This type of artifacts was something that only rankers of third year could afford. And Alan obtained them from Leonard, and it was specifically for Alyssa. Leonard knew that Alan was feeling inferior to Alyssa, so he used his feelings to make go against Alyssa and gave him all these artifacts. The match will start in 3, 2. As Alyssa heard the referee talk, she wasn't focused on the match. She could hear the voices of students cursing and telling her lose. She could feel the gazes of hatred and disgust, but above all she could see the gaze of a certain man sitting far from her. The same deep blue eyes, and those brown hair that she saw countless times in her nightmare, and one of the person that was responsible for eradicating Garcia family and killing the head of the family himself. Osbert Turvian, Alyssa muttered the name. But the match had already started and Alan dashed towards her and seeing she wasn't moving. Alan smiled thinking she was affected with all students booing her. Smiling face casual date is just a click away. He covered his sword with aura, and dashed towards Alyssa but at the moment his sword was going to make contact with Alyssa, an ice pillar emerged from the ground stopping Alan's sword which pierced halfway through the pillar but stopped. Alan immediately created a distance as noticed the flying lances in the air coming towards him. Right now, he had every advantage to counter Alyssa's ice magic, but the problem was her gravity magic. So wanted maintain some distance and slowly make Alyssa fall. This bitch can't even, soon you will be out of mana, Alan thought. In everyone's eyes Alyssa was half crippled, someone who couldn't even stand on her own. And Alan knew that Alyssa had difficulty using mana, as he had seen it with his own eyes when they were young. He knew about Alyssa's weakness so he wanted to drag this fight longer, contemporary romance. You will lose, Alan shouted as he dashed again. But this time, his armor had strange glow around it. It was an armor artifact with a skill, and it was a rank C artifact, which was something that would even work against second-year rankers. Alyssa used gravity magic to slow down Alan and created distance between them. Don't keep running, Alan shouted as he went through the field of gravity regaining his speed. But he misunderstood what Alyssa was doing. Right now the person she was fighting with wasn't Alan, but herself, and the voices that were shouting. She knew that Osbert Turvian would be present at the end-year tournament, but seeing that same face and that gaze one more time, she was filled with endless hatred. Don't lose focus, a voice was heard in Alyssa's ears. It belonged to Asha, and it came from the earring artifact that Alyssa was wearing, which was a communication artifact. Something that Asha had given to Alyssa. He had expected this situation, where Alyssa would find it hard to control herself, and might expose her true strength. Hearing Asha's voice, Alyssa's clouded eyes regained clarity as she noticed Alan coming towards her with a sword. This should be enough, Alyssa thought as she suppressed the voices in her head. She created multiple ice spears, and also another gravity field and used it to stop Alan in his place. Seeing Alan's armor, she intentionally made the ice spears weaker, as Alan looked at multiple ice spears coming her way. Alan got anxious and tried to exert all his mana, falling into Alyssa's trap, and at the moment when he dodged backward he couldn't control his strength as the gravity field was gone. Chains of ice appeared behind Alan, as he fell into them, and before he could even do anything, Alyssa slammed the ice pillar on Alan 3 times. Bam! Suddenly a SS rank pressure erupted from one of the VIP rooms, but the barrier was enough to suppress it. But everyone knew who that belonged to. It seems that the Astaria head is not happy, Alfred thought in his head. But on the other hand, Alan was knocked out on the stage while he could barely move and the chains were wrapping around Alan quite tightly. Alyssa turned to leave, as the whole arena was silent seeing the dominant performance from Alyssa Astaria. If he could, Alexander wanted to kill Alyssa right now for humiliating his son in front of everyone. But he couldn't do anything to her, and he immediately calmed himself down because there were a lot of eyes on him. I told you. The woman sitting beside Alexander was even more angry. We should have killed her. She was speaking, but midway, Alexander raised his hand, signaling for her to stop. But what stopped her was not Alexander's signal, but his glare. But she couldn't sit back and see her son humiliated in such a manner in front of everyone. His wrists are all broken, the medic who was examining Alan said. Let's take him to the ward first. The professor in charge there spoke, and they immediately moved. Everyone missed it, but Alyssa broke both of Alan's wrists while she was slamming the huge ice pillar on him. And there were multiple wounds all over Alan's body that were caused by her chains rather than the ice pillar itself. Nobody noticed it because Alyssa didn't manipulate her mana to move the chains. It was done with the help of gravity magic that was all around Alan. She masked her attack while slamming that ice pillar on Alan's body. But Alyssa's eyes were still emotionless. Sorry, I went overboard, Alyssa muttered while her eyes remained unchanged. Asher didn't reply as she didn't showcase all of her strength, and just like he said, she used more gravity magic than anything else. Almost all of the matches of the first year were done, and only the rankers and a few in the top 15 were left. Asher and Kevin were placed in the higher bracket, and more rankers needed to fight to challenge them because both of them held the rank 1 and rank 2 positions. The next duel is from rank 7 Amelia von Greville vs. rank 12 Rhea Adler, the commentator announced. The crowd cheered up again after being quiet, and the mood changed. Livia was the most excited to see Amelia fight, but there were many people cheering for both Amelia and Rhea. Amelia walked up the stage as she looked at Rhea, who was walking out confidently. Even if not from the main family, Rhea was connected with the Rothschild family. After they were positioned, the referee started the countdown, and the duel began. And it started with Amelia charging ahead first with the dagger in her hand. Despite being a mage, Amelia had been trained to use daggers efficiently. Clang. Ads by Pub Future. Rhea's sword clashed with Amelia's dagger, but it was obvious that Rhea had more strength than Amelia as she used her aura. Amelia smiled as fire emerged where Rhea was standing, and she immediately stepped backwards. The way Amelia was fighting wasn't something other mages could do. Only because she was an augmenter could she fight this way. With all the augmented spells she could use on herself, for a brief moment, Amelia could go on par with a weapon master. Rhea already knew that Amelia was a tough opponent, and that's why she decided to go all out in front of her. It was known how good the Greville were at controlling mana, and she knew dragging the fight would do her no favor. Contemporary romance. Tilting her body, she dashed towards Amelia, who expected something like this. Bam! A mana barrier emerged in front of Amelia as Rhea's sword clashed with it, and sparks were coming off. Rhea squinted her eyes as the mana barrier started to crack, but she didn't expect it to crack this easily. She widened her eyes as she realized what was happening, but she didn't have the time to react as Amelia made chains of fire emerge behind Amelia's back. Pursued whereas, Amelia chanted another spell, and the chains that were wrapping around Rhea exploded. Rhea, who got baited by Amelia, couldn't react to the augmented spell that Amelia used, which was much more powerful than its original version. The winner is Amelia von Greville, the commentator announced. Quite a clever trick, Silvers commented. Alfred smiled as he also saw how Amelia made a weak mana barrier to chant another spell at the same time, as she knew that Rhea wasn't powerful enough to break her mana barrier in a single attack. She won, Livia said, looking at Lucas, and he smiled at her. She was happy to see Emilia win, and Sylvie and Arthur were smiling as well. But the next match started immediately after, and it was between Sam Allister and Gavin Neville. It was obvious that both of them were close to each other's rank, but Gavin was careful, as he knew that Sam Allister was a cunning guy. The match started, and Gavin was expecting a tough duel, but he was confused as he saw Sam Allister coming close to him in a matter of seconds. Immediately, Gavin created a wind wall to stop Sam, who, in response, made shackles of earth appear around Gavin's feet. What the hell? Gavin was surprised, and he almost lost his footing, but he used his mana to destroy those shackles. Sam smiled as he purposefully made those weak enough for Gavin to break. After all, he wanted this match to look as close as possible so as not to stand out too much. When Sam was closing towards Gavin, he saw him summon blades of wind, which he dodged, stopping himself from using his spear. It was easy for Sam to stop them, but Gavin was a bit startled by Sam's speed. Wasn't he only a few ranks above me? Gavin questioned. But he didn't have much time to think, so he used the ring artifact to summon a blob of water above his head that started to get bigger, and Sam noticed it. I wonder what that does, Sam muttered as he ignored the ball of water and dashed towards Gavin. If Gavin was knocked out of the stage, it was a win for him, and he didn't need to wait for whatever that artifact was capable of doing. You are so stupid. Gavin smiled as Sam noticed a barrage of bullets made of water coming his way. Gavin summoned a fireball and threw it on the ground around Sam, and when the water met the hot ground, mist started appearing. Sam could have dashed at Gavin and ended this match, but he would have exposed his strength, so he decided to dodge the bullets. Due to the constant fireballs from Gavin, steam started covering the stage, and Gavin made multiple wind blades and sent them towards Sam, who was unaware of the attack. One of them hit Sam, who was sidestepping, and a wound appeared on his shoulder. Gavin was smiling as he was chanting another spell, but suddenly, through mist, he saw an object getting bigger, and he immediately summoned a mana barrier. But Sam was quicker, as before the mana barrier could cover everything, Sam slammed his leg on the ground, and a vine appeared below Gavin, covering him up. Due to him being disrupted, the mana barrier broke, and Sam arrived close to Gavin, and he swung his spear to knock Gavin out of the stage. The winner is Sam Allister. Everyone started cheering for Sam, and he even impressed a few people with his performance. Gavin grunted his teeth as he glared at Sam, and as the medics approached him to heal him, he stood up on his own. He took the healing potion and left with a sour mood. Matches were going on as Sam, who was back in his room, watched the screen, and on the stage were Vanessa and Elena. She is doing good against her, Sam muttered. He knew Vanessa was a bit weaker than him, but she was a good match against Elena Rothschild, and she had a chance to win. But she can't win, Sam muttered. Although Vanessa was quite good, there was a main difference between her and someone like Elena. The artifacts that Elena was carrying were more powerful, and Vanessa was an equal match to Elena Rothschild. But he didn't know that Vanessa could have fought Elena equally if she used her bloodline ability, but she didn't. And the match result was obvious. After dueling for 5 minutes, Vanessa was forced out of the stage, and she didn't regret it as she looked at Elena Rothschild, who had 3 cuts that were still bleeding. The winner is Elena Rothschild. The crowd was a bit shocked by Vanessa's aggressive fighting style, which didn't involve much defensive technique. She managed to push Elena Rothschild that much. I didn't think she was that powerful. Students in the arena were chatting, and the recruiters immediately noticed that Vanessa Baker was not from a big family. Contact her after this tournament ends. Most of the recruiters, including the top 5, were saying similar things. It seems there are a few rough gems this year, Alfred commented. Elena, on the other hand, couldn't believe she got pushed so far against someone like Vanessa, who she didn't think was much of a challenge. After all, even in the midterm examination, it was Asher and Alyssa that gave them trouble, not others. But with this match, Sam, Amelia, and Elena were in the next bracket, and only one match was left. It was between Damien and Eva, and the winner of that match would then fight with one of the top 5. In the VIP section. This is not the place to discuss such things, Alexander reminded his wife. But what about Alan? She said, raising her voice. He can handle it, Alexander replied, shutting her down. He was irritated, and the last thing he wanted was attention on them. However, seeing Alyssa humiliate Alan like that made it hard for him to control his anger. He already regretted not taking care of Alyssa properly and educating her about a few things before disowning her. But just like others, in Alexander's eyes, Alyssa was going to die sooner or later because of the state of her body, even if she stopped using space magic. Being crippled, she was forced to use gravity magic to move herself around. Because of that, it was even more annoying to see Alan lose like that, as they hadn't expected Alyssa to be this strong. Unlike the elite families, the public watching the tournament weren't happy with Alyssa's victory. People were commenting and making posts about how they disliked that a person from the Garcia family was given such an opportunity to even attend World Academy. Alexander had carefully made people associate Alyssa only with the Garcia family, making sure on several occasions to clarify that Alyssa didn't belong to the Astaria family. At first, he lost his composure as the image of Asher beating Alan brutally came to mind when he saw Alyssa repeatedly thrust the ice pillar at Alan. Fortunately for him, he didn't know what Alyssa had actually done to Alan's wrist and other bones. Go back for now, said Alexander as he looked at his wife and the portal behind them. His wife wanted to retaliate, but seeing Alexander's cold face made her a bit scared, and she stood up to leave. Now, for the next match, we have rank 8 Eva Williams vs rank 9 Damien Seymour. This was the last match to decide the final bracket of the first-year students. And the final match was between Damien Seymour and Eva Williams. From the cheering alone, many people were rooting for Eva, and even the odds were in Eva's favor. It's a tough match, David said, looking at Damien. He was sitting with Arthur, and both of them were discussing who would win this duel. Despite being from a well-known family, Damien never felt pressured by David to live up to certain expectations. On the other hand, Nate looked irritated, noticing that Damien was still using a shield. Nate had watched Damien and David practice a few times and knew that Damien's talent lay in close combat, just like their father. However, Damien chose to use a shield instead. On the stage, Eva remained calm, contemplating ways to defeat Damien. In contrast, Damien was smiling as he descended the stage. The smirk on Damien's face irritated Eva slightly. She narrowed her eyes, recalling the times Damien had mocked them. This guy, Amelia said, looking at the screen and shaking her head. She was aware of Damien's bad habit of taunting others, something she had warned him about numerous times. Ads by Pub Future. The referee signaled them to take their positions and raised his hand to start the countdown. Start. As soon as the command was given, multiple translucent barriers appeared in front of Eva. She manipulated them to encircle Damien. Damien, meanwhile, brandished a shield and a hammer. Both his shield and hammer were artifacts. He also wore a ring that increased the rate at which he could release his aura. Both Eva and Damien were defensively oriented as a mage and hunter, respectively, making it challenging to predict the victor. But Eva had the ability to form barriers from pure mana, and it was a special ability just like the one Amelia had. In front of a hunter below her rank, if they didn't have any powerful techniques, there was no way of breaking Eva's barrier until she ran out of mana. And mana wasn't a problem for her, and even handling so many barriers and manipulating them was something that Eva excelled at. Reese was watching her sister's match from the VIP room, and he smiled seeing that Eva was being more proactive and taking risks. She didn't bother creating a shield near herself, and went aggressive first to push back Damien. Why isn't he using close combat martial art like his father? Zerax said. I thought so too, Dalton added. Both of them remembered David Seymour, as he was a powerful ally of the Greville family, and also one of the best close combat hunter they have seen. But seeing Damien not use his family's combat art confused them. Alfred just smiled as he found it funny that none of the Seymour children wanted to learn close combat techniques that made the Seymour family famous. Damien, who was on the stage, covered his shield with his aura, as the cube made of Eva's barrier clashed with his shield, as Damien felt the mana around him. Due to the fact that most of Eva's attack were not that visible, he was sensing any change of mana around him and reacting to it. It was the best counter to Eva's attack, but Eva didn't stop at this. She created two barriers around Damien, and narrowed it down to stop Damien from dodging to his sides. Immediately seeing those barriers emerge, Damien rotated his body and swung his hammer to one of the sides, making crack on the armor. He had also reached D rank, so he was powerful enough to break the barrier. But Eva smiled, as she lowered her finger and a barrier formed above Damien, as it came crashing down on him. Damien immediately raised his shield upward as he was forced to bend his knee a bit due to the pressure behind that barrier. Can't move now, Eva spoke as shifted the barrier to the side. But before she could struck Damien, he looked at Eva as he lifted shield a bit. Damien's physical strength was the highest in the first year, not including Asher, but he could fight Asher in a spa who was AC rank hunter, which showed how high his strength was. The force that Eva applied wasn't enough to stop him. As Eva tried to change the structure of the spell, it gave Damien the opening to make his move. He pushed the shield upward with a burst of his aura, shattering the barrier, and the moment he was freed from the pressure he charged at Eva. His hammer came towards Eva, who hurriedly made small octagon shapes around her, that absorbed the impact of Damien's strike. But Damien didn't stop as he rotated his body to strike multiple times. His strength surprised many people, as he was swinging a hammer that was quite big, and looked heavy. But people were amazed the Eva's small barriers could hold on the barrage of attack that Damien was doing. Bam! Bam! Loud noises of the hammer striking the barriers were being heard. Not too bad, Arthur commented. David smiled as he saw that Damien had improved from the last time he had trained with him, but the stalemate between him and Eva was still not broken. Damien smiled as he attacked Eva, but Eva gritted her teeth as it was hard to manage these barriers and the ones she was creating. Just focusing on defense would waste too much time, and Eva wanted to keep the upper hand in this fight. But Damien didn't care if Eva was creating another barriers or another spell. If he could break the defense, she would be forced to stop. Cracks on the barriers appeared as the octagons absorbed Damien's attacks, but at the same Damien could feel some mana gathering above him. And he noticed a small globe of wind that gathering everything in one place. You sure have a lot of mana to do all this, Damien said as he noticed many small barriers in the air, and behind them were arrows made of wind. And the globe of wind element above his body started to descend on him, with Eva lowering her hand and the arrows of wind slammed down as they pierced the stage. Each arrow digged through the stage and Damien dodged every one of them. It was a powerful tier 3 spell that could pierce through heavy armors of even C rank. Damien's speed despite carrying a shield and hammer was enough to dodge, but the globe of wind was making it harder for him to move. It was like a vacuum that attracting the air around him, and even Damien could feel the force of attraction coming from the globe. It was not a simple spell, but Damien didn't have enough time to think of a counter to Eva's spell. He needed to break her defenses first before he could think about anything else. So he thought of a wild idea to rush towards Eva while disregarding the wind arrows. Contemporary romance. Eva was a bit surprised seeing Damien, who was backstepping, suddenly coming towards her. What a idiot, Eva said as she increased the speed behind the arrows. Small barriers appeared around her, but they started spinning at a high speed. This was another one of Eva's spells that utilized her barrier magic. But it was enough to counter-attack Damien, who was rushing towards her. The idea was to force Damien to use the shield for the arrows and damage him with the blade-like barrier that could pierce through his aura. But Damien ignored the arrows completely, shocking Eva as he took an arrow on his hand and ignored it, while focusing his eyes on the blades. What is he doing? Everyone were confused by Damien's charge. But Damien smiled as he reached a certain distance and flung his shield towards Eva's direction, blocking her vision. What is he doing? Some of the students were confused by Damien's approach. But the small barrier shard collided with the shield, but some of them managed to damage the shield. Eva could control the density of her barrier, but to create strong ones and manipulate them was difficult. She didn't have gravity magic like Alyssa, so she couldn't move the existing barriers too easily. Although her barriers were powerful, she needed time to create and manipulate them. And this was why she was strong against mages, and weaker against weapon users. Damien, who had large wound on his arm, was already away from Eva's field of view. And the shield that struck with Eva's powerful barrier shards created spark which took Eva's attention. Damien used the burst of aura on his feet as a loud sound shifted Eva's vision, and she noticed Damien's approach a bit too late. Eva immediately raised her elbow and multiple barriers appeared to stop Damien's attack. But Damien had used all of his aura in a single strike of his hammer. The clash of Eva's barrier and Damien's hammer made huge impact on the stage, but despite Eva's efforts, the power behind Damien's attack couldn't be stopped. "This bastard!" Kevin shouted in his room as he saw what happened next. His weapon connected with Eva's elbow and she was sent off the stage as medics immediately approached her. What an asshole. No wonder he is friends with Asher Greville. Some students that were cheering for Eva didn't like the way Damien won, but it was a win regardless. And the winner is Damien Seymour. Listening to this, Damien smiled, but he immediately noticed people coming towards him. Medics approached both Damien and Eva, and both had serious wounds. Damien's whole arm was covered in his blood, while Damien's attack broke Eva's bones. He is too reckless. Verena Seymour spoke as David looked away immediately. He fights just like you, Arthur spoke while laughing, making David's situation even worse. He is just as dumb as father, Nate said, making Arthur's laugh even louder. You are getting too brave, boy. David looked at Nate. Nate averted his eyes to not anger David anymore. Calm down, Verena, he will be fine. Sylvie tried to calm Verena down. The medics gave them both a healing potion, and as both of them could stand, they left the stage with the medics. But Eva was taken to the medical ward, while Damien was getting treated in his room. In one of the VIP rooms. Reese, who was looking at the match, wasn't too happy with the result. After all, his sister just got defeated. But the end-year tournament wasn't a normal competition, and such situations happened all the time. Until the injury wasn't vital and could threaten someone's life, no teachers would stop the match until one side got defeated or surrendered. With this, we will enter the final bracket of the first year, but the matches will start after the matches of the second, third and fourth year end, the commentator announced. Ads by Pub Future. Kevin, on the other hand, wasn't happy with the way Damien defeated Eva, and he wanted to against Damien himself. But today's matches would end before anyone competed with him and Asher. And only on the fourth days the semi-finals for all the years would happen, including the finals of the first and second year. The matches resumed, and with deciding matches of other years started. The winner is Jaden Hargrave, the commentator announced. But nobody was excited, as it was the third match of Jaden that ended with the opponent surrendering. It seems nobody wants to fight your grandson, Alfred commented. Well, he is too strong for them, Xerax laughed. Or they remember how he fought last year, Osbert added, making Xerax frown. And it was the truth. Whoever fought Jaden last year ended with lots of injuries and nobody wanted to have a repeat of what happened last year. Chances of them winning were 0 against Jaden, and it wasn't worth to affect their careers when they were so close to graduating. Almost all the top 400 students of 4th years had multiple contracts from different guilds or factions in various associations. Only those related to elite families, or some other big power were without contracts as they didn't needed one. Losing is the part of life, they are just too scared to even fight, Zerax said, but his own words contradicted what Hargrave family was truly like. Alfred just smiled, while Osbert remained calm. Silvers didn't commented while Farnes was silent. He didn't care if these guys fought with each other, as it was beneficial for him. The more difference of opinion was there between them, I think you should take a look at. After constant duels of 4 hours, and many matches later, the first-year matches were about to start again. Amelia was standing with Damien, who had bandage over his right arm. "See, I told you it was nothing." Damien moved his arm around. Yeah, Amelia looked at Damien. "I am telling, getting hurt by this hurts less than Ash's attacks," Damien said. And Amelia remembered the representative tournament, and the image of beaten Damien made her confused whether to say he was stupid or pity him. But she just shook her head. "I don't understand, how are they friends?" Amelia thought in her head. Ping! Amelia got a notification about her match. "Who is it?" Damien asked. "Elena Rothschild," Amelia replied. "Best of luck," Damien said, looking at Amelia. "And you are against Licia Halcyon," Amelia said, looking at the list. "That would be tough," Damien said. "Yes, with that injury it will be tough for sure," Amelia said. But the first match was between Sam Allister and Matthew, who was ranked 3. "Who do you think will between these two?" Amelia asked. "Of course that Matthew guy, he is quite strong," Damien replied. "But Sam, that guy is not that weak either. He could have been a ranker," Damien said. And Amelia had heard Damien say that once before, and she also was suspicious that Sam was hiding his strength. But everyone had their own reasons, and it didn't matter to her what Sam Allister did. "But he wouldn't win against Matthew," Damien said. And it was from experience that he was saying this. He had seen Matthew spar, and he had heard that he was the most talented person in the sword art class. "Even the seniors are jealous that guy is learning swordsmanship in Vice Principal Xander's class," Damien added. "With his talent, it's obvious that would be quite good," Damien said. Despite being this talented, Matthew was overshadowed under Ash's name. After all, his own swordsmanship was nothing against Asher. "And the next match is between rank 12 Sam Allister and rank 3 Matthew," the commentator announced. "Hey Jack, your brother is fighting the guy under Leonard," one of the third year told Jack, who was sitting in the VIP area as second-year matches for today had ended. Jack maintained his neutral face, but he didn't like Sam getting so much attention. Why is he making things difficult for himself, Jack thought. Sam walked on the stage, and so did Matthew, who was ready to fight Sam. Although they were friends, Matthew wasn't going too easy on Sam. Sam saw the look on Matthew and he could guess how this match was going to go if he went through with it. "Both sides get," referee was speaking, but he got interrupted. "I surrender," Sam said out loud. Referee was surprised by Sam's decision, as going with the fight was more advantageous for him to improve his ranking. "Are you sure?" referee asked. "Yes," Sam said, and the crowd started booing. Jack, on the other hand, was happy with Sam's decision. Rank 3 Matthew is the winner. The announcement was made, as Sam went back to the stage. "Doesn't feel good," Sam muttered to himself. He had resolved to surrender because of his situation, but it didn't feel good when he did. But it was better for him to do so, than escalate his situation at his family. Standing out wasn't good for him, and not being a ranker also made his family ignore him, just like Asher told him. And now Sam had something to believe in. He wasn't hesitant to put his reputation on the line for it. I hope he keeps his promise, Sam said as a sigh left his mouth. Author's message. Mass release. For the next 7 days 4 chapters each day. The next fight will be Rank 5 Licia Halcyon vs Rank 9 Damien Seymour. Princess of Halcyon. Some students from the Halcyon continent cheered. After all, it had been a long time since someone from the royal family of Halcyon had attended the World Academy. Licia was compared to other talented mages like Elena, and some even held her talents above Elena despite Elena having an affinity with all the elements. Jody, did you give her the staff? Kiara asked the girl who entered her VIP room. I did, Jody replied. She was Kiara's cousin, the same age as her, and also a ranker in her 4th year. Kiara was the daughter of the Archduchess of the Everett family, while Jody was her uncle's daughter. A princess, Livia said, looking at Licia. She had learned a bit about all the elite families and other important people as part of her training, but seeing someone from a royal family for the first time made her excited. Licia had long black hair and striking golden eyes, which were the features of the Halcyon royal family, adding to her beauty. Damien walked onto the stage and saw Licia's familiar face. After all, she was his classmate. But despite being classmate, they hadn't interacted much. Licia avoided almost every single person in the class. Only a few people like Kiara Everett and others from families loyal to the royal family were seen with her. Unfortunately, nobody from the Halcyon royal family was present here, and Licia was aware of it. But this didn't mean that they didn't care about Licia, or that Licia's standing in the royal family was low. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Given her talent, Licia had a fair chance to reach the peak of SS rank in the future. Even the seat holders, watching from the central section of the arena, were keen to see the famous Princess of Halcyon fight. Get into your position, the referee spoke as Licia took her position. He's using the same shield, Licia noticed. Having watched Eva's match, she wasn't underestimating Damien. She was prepared to expect and react to anything Damien might attempt. But for Damien, this was a challenging match. Firstly, there was a disparity in power between them, and secondly, he was injured. Despite treatment, his arm remained numb as it hadn't fully healed. Healing such injuries took time, and during the end-year tournament, students weren't permitted to use any potions or items above A rank. Ads by Pub Future. Only in medical emergencies, where the student couldn't continue their matches, would doctors use such potent healing items. In front of Amelia, Damien acted as if he was fully recovered, but he was aware that his damage potential had diminished significantly. 3, 2, 1. Start. Upon hearing those words, Licia employed the same strategy Eva had, pushing Damien back and preventing him from getting closer. However, there was a key distinction between Licia and Eva in terms of the magic they utilized. While Eva employed complex barrier magic, Licia harnessed powerful black element magic. Her affinity isn't too bad, Helena commented. Sylvie looked up at Helena's remark. It was rare for Helena to comment on others, especially if they weren't family. She had seen many people in the Moonlight Guild never get such words out of Helena's mouth despite the efforts they put in. Helena's eyes turned pitch black as she observed Licia's manipulation of the black element. Unlike Mana, Helena could discern all spell forms involving the black element, indicating her profound affinity with it. It seems she learned quite a bit from my demonstration, Helena said in her mind. Licia conjured black smoke around Damien, and from them came multiple strikes from all directions. Damien immediately turned to defend from one, but the second one would come instantly. The strength behind those strikes were weaker than Eva's attacks, but Damien was using it all to focus on not letting Licia's magic attacks touch him. Not too bad, he is aware of it. Helena was a bit impressed by Damien's decision to block and not dodge the attacks. He was maintaining his ground and not letting Licia push him back, and making big steps which could lead to an opening. But he is exposing his weakness as well, Helena smiled as saw a mistake in Damien's approach. Although it was good defense against someone that used black element, which could wound a person badly if it managed to go past their aura layer around their body. Helena noticed David tap his fingers, and everyone else except the children in this room had noticed that. Each time Damien would defend against Lycia's strike, a slight second delay would happen in his movements, making it obvious that his hands weren't stable. I was right, Lycia thought as she made a wave emerge from the ground made of mist that came off her spell. Damien noticed it, and he slammed his shield on the ground, sending a wave of his aura around him, breaking that wave, but behind it Lycia took out a staff which some students instantly recognized. "Isn't that the staff that came out in the first auction of this year?" one of them said, "contemporary romance." They recognized the staff, and so did Damien. An A-rank staff, that even the fourth-year students would want, was something that Damien didn't want it to be used against him. A mage could use spells on their own, but doing so with a staff was much more convenient and rapid. But the same staff could become a hindrance instead if it was too weak to handle the power of the mage. It was recommended to always use a staff a rank above you or more so that if you used a spell too powerful it wouldn't get affected by the staff itself. It was this reason that Silvus didn't use any staffs to cast his magic, because his magic was simply too strong. But in the hands of Lycia, right now the staff was her biggest advantage, and Damien soon felt it as Lycia started targeted her black element strikes that came from the ground. Big shadow formed on the stage, and the whole stage was now Lycia's domain, and Damien couldn't find a single moment where he could go from defense to attack. Damien was essentially a tanker, so he could defend the whole time, but this was duel where he had no one to take advantage of Damien's efforts. Stagnant, Lycia uttered the word as the staff lit up and the ground underneath Damien became sticky as he found it hard to move or lift his legs. Due to his aura, he was able to still move, but his speed was greatly reduced, and Lycia got the opportunity she needed. "It's over," Dalton spoke, and the others thought the same. The difference got way too big the moment Lycia took out that staff, and Damien had no chance now. But David and Arthur weren't thinking the same as them. In their eyes, a duel must be taken to extreme before the result could be announced, and because of their reckless nature and love for fighting, their days in World Academy constantly revolved around duels. And they would fight each other a lot. Although David got much calmer and reasonable when he married Verena, and it was the same for Arthur. They couldn't get reckless due to the responsibilities they had, but it wasn't the same for their kids. As Damien started getting pushed back, brought the hammer to the ground, shattering the part of the stage he was standing on. David simply smiled, as he was happy that Damien wasn't that reckless to win. The moment he stepped back, Damien made the decision, and the duel was decided. Lycia immediately used a spell where the black element started gathering around Damien, with bubbles appearing from the ground. Certes burst, Lycia chanted as all the black energy and the mist immediately gathered in one place. Damien raised his shield in front and used his aura, but he felt his hands go weak. Effect of black element, Helena spoke to the twins. "He can't move his arm because of the mist," Helena told the twins. Immediately, that black energy burst in front of Damien as a huge hole was made on the stage. While Damien defended against the attack, part of his body still got wounded, and his shield was cracked. It was powerful attack, but Damien was still fine, but he lost because he was out of the stage. The winner is Lycia Halcyon. Lycia looked at the crowd cheering her, and it kind of reminded her of Halcyon, where she would get similar treatment. "Well done, princess," Kiara said from her room with a smile on her face. "She is quite strong for a first year. Using that spell without wasting mana is quite impressive," Jody added. Amidst the clapping and cheering of the crowd, standing up Damien felt a bit sour losing, but he wasn't unhappy with his performance. His fight was over the moment he felt the strength in his arm fading, and if he got more reckless he was sure there will be a few people that would get quite angry. The professors fixed the stage with their magic and restored it for the next match. Isn't that magic too powerful? Livia asked, looking at Helena. It is if you stay exposed in it for too long, Helena answered. He was forced to stay on that stage and she used it for her advantage, Helena added. And he was already injured, so his arm got affected by it much quickly, Helena said. There were various things that were possible with black element, and one of them were curses. If someone had the affinity to cast such a magic, they could drain their opponent and weaken them by using the corrosive property of black element. There are few ways you can counter it, Helena said, looking at the twins. Move out of the range of the spell, or possess higher affinity of black element than your opponent, Helena said with a smile. There are other ways, but you can start learning about them while studying here, Helena added. She gave Livia the answer she needed, but not the complete answer. Although he could have tried to push her further, but it was better to stop right there, Helena said. It's good he is not reckless like some youngsters I remember, Helena said, making Arthur and David uncomfortable. Nate just shook his head, as he was glad that his brother still had a brain left in his head. Licia walked off the stage, and her display of strength attracted many eyes. Some were out of admiration but some were not. Lot of talks were happening, especially in the third VIP section, and among them were the people from Black Market. Seeing this, I don't think that the rumors about the royal family are true, a middle-aged man said. You think there has been so much movements and friction in Halcyon for nothing? Another man asked. Enough, this is not the place to discuss such things, an old man said, stopping them at once. But not talking about it doesn't mean that the doubts disappeared, and the old man knew that very well. Although the group behind Black Market was tied with the elite families and the other powerhouses, but they maintained their distance from them. Ads by Pub Future. Getting too involved in something would only make things difficult from them. What are the odds for the next match? The old man asked. It is close, the middle-aged man replied. The next match is between Rank 6 Elena Rothschild vs Rank 7 Amelia von Greville. As the next match was announced, a lot of people got excited as the two families had an open dispute with each other in the representative tournament, with Nathan and Dalton going against each other. It will be an interesting match, one of the guys sitting in the student section spoke. I heard they were friends until things went wrong between their families, he added. Yeah, I heard that Amelia Greville studied with Elena Rothschild when she was in Desmer, a girl spoke out. Doesn't look like friends to me though, one of them said, pointing at the stage. I said, "Were, idiot," the guy said, but it was hard to believe that two people with a cold expression on their faces were once friends. Amelia didn't like Elena the moment she insulted her family, and Elena changed her opinion when Amelia had an argument with Kevin. And seeing her crimson red eyes, reminded her of Asher, the one guy she hated the most in the world. Alfred and Dalton both went quiet as the others didn't say anything. It's better that he is not here, Silvers thought, thinking of Nathan. He could only imagine what would happen if Nathan and Dalton were present at the same time while this match was happening. You seem quite confident, Elena said, walking to her position. I am, Amelia replied with her indifferent expression. I think you should take a look at. While the referee was about to start the match, Livia was cheering for Amelia. Both Elena and Amelia got ready as they flared their mana. Amelia wasn't overconfident because she knew Elena was powerful, and so did Elena. Unlike the previous fight, they were fairly matched except the fact that Elena was bit more powerful than Amelia as pure mage. But in a duel, Amelia had the advantage as she could increase her strength using augmentation magic. 3, 2, 1 start. Boom! The moment the match started, Elena immediately used fire magic to create explosion around the area Amelia was standing. But Amelia had casted her mana barrier, so she was fine, and in response Amelia made a ring of fire appear around Elena. Ignite. Amelia augmented her spell, making it much more powerful. Elena made water emerge around her, clashing with Amelia's spell. Spike, Elena said as Amelia noticed spear-like spikes appear from the ground, contemporary romance. She dodged backwards as a fireball emerged in her hand and soon 5 more appeared. She shot them towards Elena, who made a shield of fire that absorbed Amelia's attack. Is this all you got? Elena asked as she made spear of fire appear by raising her hand in the sky. Her bracelet started shining, as Amelia felt a glow around her feet. A restriction artifact, David said looking at the stage. Suddenly a barrier appeared around Amelia, making it impossible for her to move. Dodge this, Elena said as she sent the fire spears towards Amelia. Amelia frowned but she made a mana barrier, but Elena's attack were more powerful than she anticipated. Is it another artifact? Amelia thought. Bam, bam, bam. At third hit, the barrier shattered making Elena smile as her plan worked. The ring that Elena was wearing increased the intensity of her fire element spells, and also slightly increased her damage output. It was a B rank artifact that she received only recently. But as the fourth spear of fire made its way towards Amelia, something strange happened. Silvus focused his eyes on Amelia, more importantly the spell she was chanting. Suddenly the arrow that traveling towards Amelia dissipated as soon as it got near her. It was a strange thing, but Elena was confused by this until she realized that Amelia had destructured her spell by forcing the mana around her to absorb it. It was special technique a lot of mages used, but it also drained quite a lot of mana and strained their mana core in the process. But Amelia, who had the Greville bloodline, managed to pull it off, but despite being surprised by this, Elena immediately composed herself. Amelia couldn't do this endlessly, and Elena still had time until the restriction spell on Amelia faded. But Amelia made a wave of fire appear in front of her with the motion of her hands, and it acted as a shield against Elena. Suddenly the match that appeared to favor Elena became stalemate, as Elena's fire spears were absorbed by Amelia's spell. They are taking their time, Elsa, who was watching the match, muttered. She knew that both of them knew more powerful spells, but they needed time and opening to cast them. Until then, they could only corner each other using such spells. It seems she learned a bit from those books. Silvus noticed that Amelia was utilizing her knowledge from the books she took from her visit in Mage Association. Meanwhile, Farnas was smiling, as he hoped this match to go in a certain direction. Nobody was aware of his intentions, and even his faint smile went unnoticed by others. Firestorm, Elena chanted, and a storm of fire appeared between her and Amelia. It was powerful enough to melt part of the stage where it appeared, but Amelia remained calm. To counter a spell, you needed to respond with equal or more powerful magic. However, there were many factors that affected how effectively you could counter a magic spell. One of these factors was understanding the structure of the spell used and finding a weakness in that structure. It was difficult to do unless you had studied the spell yourself. If you didn't understand the structure, the only way to counter was to use even more powerful magic against it. Up to Tier 3, all spells behaved predictably, meaning some elements were naturally stronger against others. But this changed from Tier 4 onward, where magic became more complex. No one in the first year, including Asha, could cast a Tier 4 magic. Even the Tier 3 spells that some of them used were simpler versions of the original Tier 3 spells. They restructured these to suit their needs. And accomplishing such feats was only possible for a few talented individuals with guidance from teachers like Elsa. Reverse Wind, Tempest Art, Amelia chanted, augmenting the spell. Chanting while augmenting was one of the techniques she had learned from the knowledge she gleaned from the books she had read. After all, the books that Amelia had read were written by famous mages whose names were noted in history. Before going to the Sanctuary of Mages, Amelia asked Sylvie for suggestions. In response, Sylvie provided Amelia with the names she needed to search for. That's why Silvus was able to recognize Amelia's methods instantly. He himself had read those books. Because some of them were closely related to augmentation magic, Silvus couldn't learn much from them. Wind around the stage started flowing in the opposite direction, and Amelia's magic clashed with Elena's firestorm, making it unstable, and soon it started to scatter. Soon, the restriction of the bracelet was gone and Amelia was freed, and she immediately augmented herself physically. Amelia made her way towards Elena while a dagger appeared in her hand. Elena smiled as she made tilted pillar made of stone appear in order to hit Amelia. Amelia's eyes looked to her sides as she saw multiple pillars appear towards her. Her crimson red eyes focused on pillars as Amelia sidestepped, but the stage started rumbling as Elena lifted her hands. Crack. Amelia looked at the cracks that were appearing right below her. I need to dodge, Amelia thought while looking around. But the whole area around her was affected by Elena's spell, making it impossible for her to make out of it in a normal way before Elena completed the spell. She immediately jumped on one of the pillars, but as soon as Amelia landed on one of the pillars, she saw a ball of fire coming towards her. She can dual chant already, not bad, Xerax commented. Dalton looked proud at his granddaughter as the battle was in Elena's favor. Ads by Pub Future. The fireball was about to hit Amelia, but she saw vines with thorns appear from the cracks, so she couldn't fall back. Taking a short breath, Amelia's eyes narrowed on the fireball as she jumped towards the fireball. At the same time, vines emerged from the stage, but Amelia was already mid-air, as he took out her dagger while covering it mana. She slashed the fireball with it, but her hands were burned in the process, but her mana broke the spell, making the impact much less. But the fireball exploded, surprising Amelia as Elena clenched her hand. It was the ability of the ring artifact she possessed, and it was to control fire and burst into explosion a few times. It's over, Amelia, Elena said as the vines started traveling towards Amelia, who was falling from her position at a high speed. No, Livia shouted as she saw Amelia was falling into the vines. Amelia shifted her body towards the ground, and her eyes started chanting as Alfred smiled, but a frown appeared on Dalton's face. Her crimson red eyes were glowing, and it meant she was using her bloodline ability. Lir burst, Amelia muttered as bluish fire covered the ground beneath her, burning the vines immediately. Amelia made a mana barrier on the ground to safely land, and immediately landing, she dashed towards Elena, who saw Amelia's glowing red eyes, which made another image overlap on Amelia's face. Remembering that, Elena stopped chanting for a second, which was enough time Amelia to get close to Elena. Amelia managed to make on Elena's arm before she took a few steps back as she glared at Amelia. But Elena was angry on herself for making such a mistake. If the distance was bit shorter, Elena thought to herself, the match would have ended if Amelia was a bit closer and her dagger made its way near her neck. She made a mistake, Tyrone, who was sitting with Raylan, spoke. It's fine, the match hasn't ended yet, Raylan said. Amelia's right hand had burn injuries, but Elena's arm was bleeding as well. But both of them unfazed by it. Even some of the students were surprised by the level of their fights, as they haven't seen first years fight like this. Elena raised her left hand to send condensed ball of fire, which Amelia had no choice but to dodge. Amelia was using a lot of mana to augment herself, so she was able to dodge them easily, but some of them could explode due to the power of the artifact Elena had. Their exchange of magic started, and both of them responded with equal or sometimes powerful magic. Despite using augmented magic, Elena was still able to use powerful enough spell to counter Amelia's attack. I think I underestimated them a bit, Licia said. Currently she was present in Kiara's VIP room, with Jody being present there as well. Will you lose to them? Jody asked. No. I can win, Licia was confident. Kiara smiled seeing her confidence, and she was glad that she was like that. But who do you think will win? Licia asked Kiara. I don't know, their magic is equally powerful, but Amelia Greville has a good chance if this battle drags on, Kiara replied. And it seems she is aiming for that to happen, Kiara said as she pointed at stage. Elena closed her eyes, as the ground around her started to shake and stone pebbles started to form multiple daggers around her. Amelia didn't do anything, as she started chanting as well, as drops of water started circling around her. Both of them have activated their mana barrier, and were chanting to create a powerful spell. Stone daggers were formed, as Elena blazed them on fire, but this time the fire was highly condensed and hot. But the stone didn't get affected by the heat, as Elena controlled her mana. Elena opened her eyes as she sent the stone daggers towards Amelia, but the water droplets became bigger as an entrapment spell appeared between Elena and Amelia. Elena frowned as the water drops started to catch the daggers, slowing them down while Amelia moved towards her. It was a defensive spell, which took a lot of mana to maintain, but for Amelia, the mana cost to cast such a spell was low. Both brother and sister are a problem, Osbert thought looking at Amelia. Nobody targeted Amelia, because there were rumors in rift between the Greville siblings, and people wanted that rift to get bigger. But seeing that how Elena Rothschild and Amelia Greville were not on friendly terms, Osbert confirmed that the things might have changed now. Amelia, who was rushing towards Elena, waved her hands to create wall of fire behind Elena to stop her from retreating. Elena sensed the heat emerging behind her, and she had only one chance to end this match. She could sense that prolonging this battle would do her harm than good. She had a lot of mana left, but she was sure that she would be the one to run out of mana first. It was already impressive that being at the D rank she could multicast so many times, without wasting her mana, but in front of someone of the Greville bloodline, having a battle of mana was pointless. Amelia also knew that if she pushed Elena, she would try to end this match in one go, and to do so she needed to use something closer to a tier 3 spell, Contemporary Romance. Series Ignite, Elena muttered as her eyes closed. Is she forcefully using a tier 3 spell? Some of the professors got worried, but they didn't move just yet. Amelia on the other hand threw her dagger at Elena, that got absorbed in the globe of fire that appeared in front of Elena. Is she trying a half chant? Zerax said, and Silvus nodded. A half chant was using half the structure of a spell to quickly use a spell, but it would be very unstable and maintaining it for long was impossible. The globe started glowing as huge explosion was about to happen and Amelia charged towards it. The match is over, Silvus said as Dalton smiled. But Silvus didn't meant it the way Dalton thought. Because he sensed what Amelia was doing, he knew the outcome of this match. The explosion happened, as huge dust appeared on the stage. The students were confused, both the professors were standing shocked seeing Amelia on the edge of the stage, with wounds on her body, while Elena, who was slightly out of the stage. But her condition was even worse than Amelia. How? Elena muttered looking at Amelia, who barely standing. Even some professors didn't recognize the method Amelia used. She learned quite a trick from her trip, Elsa said while smiling. Amelia Greville is the winner was announced. The third day had ended, but while everyone were confused or shocked by the result, one man was waiting for the next day to begin. Tomorrow will be quite a day, Farnes thought as he looked at the stage. How did she win? Licia blurted out, and both Kiara and Jody shared her confusion. In the VIP room. Will she be alright? Livia asked, casting a worried glance at Sylvie. She will be fine, Sylvie patted Livia's head. How did she win, though? Lucas asked while looking at the stage. He was curious, and Helena looked at the look on the young boy's face and smiled. The answer is in front of you, Helena said, but Lucas was confused. Look at those wounds. Do they look like wounds from an explosion? Helena asked, and Lucas looked at the footage of Amelia winning that was being replayed, but those wounds were from cuts, not an explosion. But it confused Lucas even more. She used another spell at the center of the explosion to push her opponent out of the stage, Helena said. At the last moment, just before approaching the globe that was about to explode, Amelia forcefully generated a powerful wind blast spell that produced blades of wind and spread them all around. She then augmented that spell to finish before Elena's spell. Both of them used a half chant, but Amelia used one of the many techniques she learned, which was using her own mana to manipulate and place her spell inside a space that was dominated by another person's mana. It wasn't a feat to achieve at her level if not for the Greville bloodline she had, and that was why Silvus was impressed by this battle. She is used one of the principles of mana, something you have learned as well, Helena added. But the method she used was something only an augmenter can do, Helena said. And on the center area, Farnes stood up to announce the end of the day. While the other seat holders did the same, Dalton was surprised by the outcome, but he didn't let it show on his face. Although there were many exciting matches, the third day ends now, and the next match will start tomorrow, Farnes announced as every student in the arena stood up. Kevin, on the other hand, rushed to look at Elena's condition, but the staff member told him she was being taken to the medical ward. He arrived at the medical facility soon, but the doctors stopped him from entering as Elena was being treated. "I hope she is fine," Kevin said as he sat down on an empty seat. He was not worried about Elena's physical condition. He was worried that this loss might have affected her more deeply, emotionally and mentally. After waiting for 10 minutes, he was allowed to visit Elena, and he saw Elena sitting on the bed with her head on her knees. Her body was wrapped in bandages, and Kevin was glad that she was fine, but he didn't know how to approach her at the moment. "I am fine," Elena muttered while not facing Kevin. "It's fine, Elin." Kevin was speaking, but he stopped as Elena shouted. "Kevin, I am fine. I just need some time alone," Elena said, raising her voice. Ads by Pub Future. "I don't want you to see me like this," Elena said as Kevin stopped midway and took a step back. "Okay," Kevin muttered as he left the room soon after. Elena raised her head as she saw the door close, but her eyes were filled with tears, which she wanted to hide from Kevin. She didn't think she would lose like this, not after all the training she did. But losing to the sister of the person she hated the most made it even worse. "I can't believe I lost to her," Elena muttered as she clenched the bedsheet. Amelia, on the other hand, was taken to a separate medical facility, and Livia and Lucas had come to visit her with Damien. "And you were calling me out for being reckless," Damien said as he looked at Amelia, who was hiding under her bedsheet. "I won, so it doesn't matter," Amelia replied as she peeked out of the bedsheet. "Are you really fine?" Livia asked as she looked at Amelia with eyes full of worry. "I am fine, I just got a bit carried away while fighting," Amelia replied. "Excuse me, you should let her rest for her now," the nurse came in and politely told Damien and the twins. At first, the medical staff was surprised by the twins, but the rumors about the Grandis and Greville twins were spreading, so they didn't stop them or anything. "You can enter my floor. I have given you access to it," Amelia reminded Livia as she was about to leave. "Okay." Livia nodded her head as she pushed Lucas and Damien to leave the room. "She needs rest to hurry up," Livia said as she pushed both of them. Amelia chuckled. "Eek," Amelia said as she felt the pain in her wounds. It was better for them to heal naturally if they had the time. But this time, she consumed a bit of healing potion that increased the speed at which her wounds healed. But it would take at least a day for her to completely heal herself. After all, mages didn't possess aura, so their natural healing rate was slower than those who possessed aura. And to her advantage, the wound that hurt her came from her own spell, so she could recover much faster. Although Amelia was happy that she won, she wanted to show a better win to the twins, as their older siblings. Although the day had ended, for the whole world that was watching the tournament, lots of things were happening. From Alyssa's win to people criticizing World Academy for allowing someone from the Garcia family to even attend such a prestigious place. Each continent had its own favorites, as Lycia was for Halcyon, and Kevin's group was for Desma. But Elena and Eva's defeat today made people question if their previous assumptions were true. Due to the fact that not much information about World Academy leaked outside, the end-year tournament was the one place where people judged these students. Normally, the speed of the tournament was much lower, so these matches wouldn't have happened on the same day, but now they did. People were questioning whether they were right in placing their bets on Rothschild or the Williams family. Amelia looked at the door as she let go of her thoughts. He really didn't come, Amelia muttered. She thought Asher would visit her like Damien and the twins did. Smiling face, casual date is just a click away. I should go to sleep, Amelia shook her head. Asterisk 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 contemporary romance. The arena was filled with students and other people who were in the VIP or guild section, and everyone was looking at the main area, where many portals were opening. Farnes was the first to step in, as were Silvus, Alfred, Osbert, Dalton, and Xerax, and after them, there were some new guests. And the first of them was Dexter Wright himself, who had come out of his busy schedule to see these matches. And the second one was Joseph Kimia Cranston. Some of the invited people this year who didn't come were Nathan and Marvin Watson and the third SSS rank hunter of the World Association. It's a shame that some of the guests couldn't attend, Farnes said as he took his seat. Dexter had a stern look on his face as he sat on his seat while Joseph maintained his calm face. He was the only one who knew that Nathan was in possession of 2 SSS rank mana gems, but surprisingly, he didn't spread the information to others. Even Nathan expected Joseph to do something like this because there was no alliance between the 3 strongest elite families. All of them sitting here were the seat holders, and their influence was quite huge on the world. Why I am seeing all your faces so many times this year, Dexter said as he looked at the stage. Don't worry, you will see us again on the day High Council gathers, Xerax said, but Dexter was just annoyed by all this. First, the Kalwaz Gala, now the end-year tournament, and then High Council meetings. It was rare for the seat holders to see each other so often, and Dexter wasn't happy because he had a responsibility to attend such events. I am more surprised that the chairman of Mage Association is less annoyed than me, Dexter said. I have my reasons, Dexter, Silvus replied. Dexter was the only one who had connections with everyone, but he didn't take any sides. His excellence in his craft was essential for every single SSS rank hunter, as making weapons and armor that could withstand their power wasn't an easy task. Well, let's not get distracted. The tournament is about to start, Farnes said. Welcome back, everyone, to the end-year tournament's 4th day, a man standing on the stage said as everyone got excited. There are a lot of interesting matches today, but we will start with the first one, Gazel said as many students cheered up. And for the first match, we have, Gazel opened his list, and even he was surprised. It is between Amelia von Greville vs. Rank 1 Asher von Greville, Gazel said as many people were surprised. Ho! A match between siblings, how interesting, Dexter said out loud. And even Osbert raised his eyebrows as he didn't expect something like this. This old fox, Osbert thought as he glanced at Farnes. He knew something was up with the way Farnes had changed the tournament, and with the rumors about Grandis and Greville twins, Osbert was waiting for it to be revealed. Amelia stepped out of her room, and so did Asher, and after a few seconds, both of them approached the stage. Let's see what will happen, Farnes thought in his mind. Asher stepped onto the stage as his indifferent eyes looked at Amelia. Nobody knew, but the moment the end-year tournament began, everything had worked as Farnes wanted. The rest of the 8 chapters that were missed yesterday and today will come in 6 to 7 hours one by one. Updaters advise, I wouldn't recommend getting your hopes up. Regardless of whether the promise is fulfilled or not, I will upload it after 10 hours, so let's read other S first. Asher stood on the stage with the same indifference in his eyes. Amelia walked onto the stage, and just as the referee was about to start the match, she raised her hands. "I will forfeit," Amelia declared. Many weren't surprised but hoped to see a battle between the two siblings. "And here I thought every Greville was a battle maniac," Xerax remarked with a disappointed expression. He wasn't the only one curious about the rumors of the two Greville siblings not being on good terms. However, with Amelia admitting defeat so quickly, perhaps the rumors weren't true. Osbert began tapping his finger on his elbow, reflecting on the same thoughts. "It seems you are disappointed by this," Alfred inquired, glancing at Xerax with a smile. "Haha, I just wanted to see a good fight. What did you think I meant?" Xerax retorted, the smile fading from his face. "If you insist, then it must be true," Alfred responded, shifting his gaze to the stage. Alfred's nonchalance irritated Xerax. Alfred was the sole SS rank hunter among all the SSS rank hunters sitting here. "I hope everyone remains peaceful," Farnas interjected before Xerax could react further. Xerax backed down, seeing Farnas's warning as he didn't want to escalate the situation, but it was true that he wanted to push Alfred into a corner. After all, he had never seen fear in that man's eyes, even after sitting between so many SSS rank hunters, and every single one of them was at odds with each other publicly, at least. Dexter and Silvus were neutral, while Farnas stayed out of the picture, and the rest were publicly at odds with each other. Farnas looked at Xerax as he backed down without creating a fuss. "Don't get riled up now, there will be an opportunity later," Farnas mused. On stage, Asher was declared the winner since Amelia had relinquished her intent to fight him. Some of the first years could fathom her reluctance, as facing Asher Greville was daunting. Asher had a reputation of being someone best avoided, someone even the student council struggled to manage. Yet, someone in the VIP room was particularly relieved the siblings didn't clash. "Thank God they didn't fight," Damien exclaimed. It was clear Amelia would lose, and Damien suspected that Asher wouldn't have shown her mercy. There was a deeper reason for Damien's apprehension about their potential fight, even though he often sparred with Asher. "He's changed since the past," Damien murmured. He had been thinking about it for a year, but somehow, he felt that Asher had changed greatly from the Asher he had remembered before going to Desmer with Amelia. He knew that Asher didn't express himself like others, but he felt something different when he saw Asher's eyes. They remained normal when he interacted with Asher, but sometimes, he would glance at Asher, even if he felt a bit scared. But Damien didn't want to think about Asher like that, so he never confronted Asher about this. Ads by Pub Future. "I hope they can just talk it out," Damien sighed as he looked at Amelia and Asher leaving the stage. The next fight is between Rank 3 Alyssa Astaria vs. Rank 5 Licia Halcyon, Gazel announced as he pointed at the stage. Licia walked towards the stage as she looked at Alyssa, who was hovering above the ground wearing a mask that covered half her face. Alyssa took her position as the referee and started the countdown. Licia was prepared to give it her all because this match and tournament were important for her. "Start," the referee said out loud. "It's a pity that a certain someone is not here," Xerax said as he looked toward a particular VIP section room. Everyone sitting there knew that Xerax Hargrave was talking about the VIP where Alexander Astaria was present yesterday. "It seems you are missing Astaria head too much," Osbert asked looking at Xerax. "Ha ha ha, maybe I am," Xerax replied, looking at Osbert. This was the way all the SSS rank hunters interacted with each other. The situation that involved calamities was dangerous enough to make them work together, but internally, all of them were wary of each other. "Just watch the fight," Dexter spoke out as both of them turned towards the stage. "What a cold-hearted guy," Xerax smiled as he found the situation funny. After all, the man who killed an entire elite family in a single night was sitting here calmly, seeing the only survivor of that night's fight. Alyssa summoned 10 ice spears behind her, and Licia summoned a wave of fire all around her. Licia had two affinities, one was black element, and the other was fire element, and she would use her fire magic as a defense against Alyssa. Defeat her. You can do it, princess. Students were cheering against Alyssa, and although Licia didn't like how she received the attention, it was the best situation she could have asked for. Alyssa was the source of hatred for many, and if Licia could gain favor by going against her, she didn't mind that. Alyssa was unfazed by the loud cheering as she sent the ice spear towards Licia, who defended by creating a wall of extremely hot fire from the waves around her. She is using a lot of mana from the start, Elsa said, looking at the match. Today, she was in charge of the matches with a few other S-rank professors. Licia made the whole area around her black as the same black mist started to cover the area around her. But Alyssa had already watched the match yesterday, and she simply shifted the gravity to the left side as the mist started to gravitate towards the left. Licia felt the pressure on herself, but she covered herself with mana, making it easier for her to stay in one place. Licia cast a restriction spell as a chain appeared from the huge black shadow, and they went towards Alyssa, who simply pointed her finger downwards. Bam! The chains fell on the ground, creating a loud noise while Licia didn't stop as multiple small fireballs approached Alyssa. All Alyssa did was slightly shift the gravity around her to dodge them, but she was constantly using gravity magic for it, which required quite a bit of mana. But most people weren't happy that Alyssa was showing such a performance against Licia. Licia raised the staff in her hand as the number of fireballs increased by 5 times. She targeted Alyssa's current location and every other place she could dodge back to. Now, Alyssa had no choice but to use ice magic to nullify the fireballs, but it was hard to do so if the numbers were so high. But she knew that there was a limit to what she could showcase her power here. Just enough, Alyssa was repeating these words in her head. Ice lance, Alyssa muttered as Licia noticed multiple lances in the air, and all of them were coming her way. Merge globe, Licia chanted with the help of her staff as the shadow of black elements around her turned into a globe that covered her from ice lances. It was a defense spell that most black element mages used, but people needed good control over the element itself to pull this off. Not bad, Silvus commented. There were rumors that said that Licia Halcyon had a better talent as a mage than Elena Rothschild, but nobody could confirm those rumors. Contemporary romance. Elena had the potential and the versatility to use multiple elements, but Licia had high control over her own element. But in Silvus's eyes, right now, Alyssa was performing much better than Licia. To make so many ice structures without compromising the strength of the structure itself required a lot more than talent. And the fact she was constantly using gravity magic was indeed impressive. She might be the second strongest mage of this generation, Silvus thought, but he wanted to see the end of this duel before coming to a conclusion. Suddenly, Licia chanted a big spell that she had learned recently, and she took inspiration from her meeting with Helena Raven. Suddenly, a lot of black energy started to appear behind Licia as the chains from the restriction spell started dissipating. Alyssa looked ahead, and she could feel the mana Licia was putting in her spell. Alyssa raised her hand and used gravity magic to interrupt Licia, but the spell didn't work as Licia's mana was covering the small area around her. Should I use more? Alyssa asked herself. Counter it. Ash's voice came inside Alyssa's ears. It was to follow the plan they made, and Licia made it easier by using a pseudo tier 3 magic instead of a half chant. The globe burst as a translucent black cylinder barrier appeared around the stage, and it was increasing Licia's power as Licia's air started fluttering with all the rampant mana around her. Suddenly, that barrier faded, and Alyssa felt something heavy on her body. Chase the mark that shadow left behind. Licia completed her chant as a big hand appeared from the massive black energy. It was an indodgeable attack, something that marked the opponent, and it chased them in the entire area that the cylinder barrier covered. Suddenly, Alyssa summoned a huge ice needle that had a purple spark around it as she influenced it with gravity magic, and her spell surprised many people as the large needle went towards the hand. Even Licia was shocked by the large needle, and due to Alyssa using gravity magic, it went towards the black hand as Licia immediately summoned a mana barrier in case Alyssa destroyed her spell. But she didn't know that Alyssa could do something like this. But suddenly, the ice structure was destroyed as it shattered into pieces, and Alyssa, who was in the air, fell and hit the stage. Wait, what? Licia panicked as she could not stop her spell that was going towards Alyssa. It happened so quickly, and most students were confused about how Alyssa's ice structure shattered instantly. Updater's note: the author is making no promises today, just like nothing happened yesterday. This is good. As the black hand was about to strike Alyssa's unconscious body, Elsa appeared in the middle and flicked her finger. A light blue fire emerged, destroying all traces of black energy without harming Licia. She then turned to Alyssa, who was lying there unconscious, and touched her hand. She pushed herself too far, Elsa muttered. Apart from the high-ranking hunters, everyone else was unaware of what had happened. Those who did know only saw Alyssa as someone who had tried to do something beyond her abilities. It's a wonder she can bring out so much mana from that body, Elsa said, sensing an absolute wreck of mana inside Alyssa's body. However, this was all an illusion created by the A-rank artifact Alyssa was wearing. Since it was Alyssa's own body that the mask copied, it served as a perfect disguise, concealing her healed body both externally and internally. The winner is Licia Halcyon. As Alyssa Astaria cannot continue, Elsa announced as the match concluded, contemporary romance. Yeah, I knew it. How could she handle magic like that? One of the students exclaimed. She's just a crazy BCH. I knew she wasn't much compared to other top rankers. Elsa heard what the students were saying, but she simply carried Alyssa to the medic team, knowing the situation could worsen. Get her to the medical ward immediately, Elsa instructed the medics. Place her in level 4 emergency, Elsa said, and the medics promptly took Alyssa from her arms. Why go this far? Sigh, Elsa pondered. She had witnessed everything, the moment Alyssa's mana burst from her body. Elsa was aware that Alyssa's body was in bad shape, and it was nearly impossible to mend due to the nature of the injury. Still, Elsa had assumed Alyssa would see her limits and wouldn't go past them. What happened? Why did the spell break? Lucas inquired. She couldn't muster the mana needed for that spell, Helena responded. Ads by Pub Future. What was the first lesson you learned after completing your awakening? Helena asked, directing her question to the twins. Helena was somewhat familiar with the lessons given to the children of the Greville family, especially because their bloodline influenced and enabled them to manipulate mana. Taking in more mana than needed is as harmful as pushing out more mana than we are capable of, Lucas replied. This was the first lesson both of them had received during their official training. Correct. That's what happens when someone, who has already injured their mana meridians, tries to push more mana than their body can handle, Helena said, glancing at the stage. That's why, as a hunter or a mage, you should never rush to increase your mana cause rank, Helena advised, turning her attention back to the twins. Waiting is better than limiting your potential by your own actions, Helena told the twins. Both Lucas and Livia nodded in acknowledgement of Helena's advice. Helena smiled, recognizing that the twins were impressively level-headed for their age. Is it because they grew up in a different environment? Helena mused. Ordinary people didn't have to worry about absorbing more mana than they could handle, as it was impossible for their bodies to contain such vast amounts to begin with. But due to the Greville bloodline, they could forcefully exceed the limitations of their mana core. However, the subsequent damage would be severe. Hence, before commencing their training, the twins, just like Amelia and Asher, were educated about the risks associated with their unique bloodline ability. Those risks decreased as one ranked up and their mana cores became denser and stronger. However, in the initial stages of their mana core, the mana meridians of an awakened human were fragile enough to sustain damage. A strong mana core who. The stage was restored swiftly since Elsa's flame only affected Lycia's spell and nothing else. Such mastery over an element was what qualified her to instruct at World Academy and be acknowledged as a 3-star professor. Sylvus, who had been observing the duel, concluded that despite Alyssa's evident talent, she would never grow stronger. The gap will only widen, Sylvus reflected. For now, she was indeed formidable enough to be a ranker, but he foresaw that in the near future, she would reach her limits. But this also made Sylvus realize that in the future who among the mages held the most potential. They should do fine here, Sylvus said to himself as he thought of his grandkids. He had hidden it carefully, but both Jacob and Jennifer were quite talented themselves. Especially Jennifer, who had learned many things from Sylvus himself. In his room, Asher looked at the match with no change in his eyes. After all, he was the one that planned everything and even gave Alyssa the strange medicine that messed her mana up. Or it seemed like it did. Mana fluctuations was something that Asher learned when he was creating his own doping technique, and in his previous life, he also came across a drug that could replicate that. He needed it to suppress as his mana meridians that were overloaded with mana, and that drug did just that by breaking the mana in the body. For someone with a damaged meridian, taking this drug was extremely painful, but if they didn't, the most that would happen was that they would remain unconscious for a day or two. Well, that was quite a match, but the next match is something you don't want to miss. Gazel said, taking everyone's attention back. The winner of the previous duel, rank 5 Lycia Halcyon vs rank 4 Matthew. Gazel announced. The match will start in half an hour and winner will then compete against rank 2 Kevin Whiteheart. Gazel said as the crowd cheered loudly. A lot of first years got excited as Matthew was someone that got popular among those that didn't have the big background and status. It was rare for such a talent to appear that could compete within those that have all the resources in the world. The guild recruiters looked at Matthew and he was one of the students that they had their eyes on but couldn't recruit. World Association had already made a contract with Matthew before he even joined the World Academy, and that meant that he could join any other faction other than World Association. Matthew, who was in his room a minute ago, received a message from Leonard Tervian. Try to defeat her as quickly as possible, Matthew read the message. He is telling me to go all out in this match, Matthew muttered. Matthew didn't what Leonard Tervian wanted by doing all this, but he didn't wanted to ask any questions. Let's just quickly get this over with, Matthew said to himself. Leonard was the son of Osbert Tervian, and Matthew knew how much power they had in the world. It was better to obey him than create problems that could affect his entire life. Leonard's order meant that he wanted Matthew to fight with all he had in the next fight and not saving his energy for the match after it when he won. Well, rank 3 doesn't seem bad, Matthew said, looking at ceiling. At this time, the second-year matches started, and until the three of them were being held, Lycia Halcyon was gathering her mana with Kiara Everett by her side.